Welcome to our Meet the Experts editing panel. Today we're joined by Peter Sciberras from Blitz, Marco Costa from Challengers, Juliette Welfling from Emilia Pérez, Nicholas Monsour from Nickel Boys, and Myron Kerstein from Wicked. Thank you all for being here. I'm wondering, what was the first scene you've ever edited? It doesn't need to be something professional, but maybe like a home video when you were a kid. Peter, how about you?
Wow, it's going back. Let me think. I guess the first thing I ever edited was actually a music video for a housemate. He was directing a music video, and yeah, it was pretty lo-fi. It was very low budget. It was all set in a friend of a friend's basement. That was really fun.
And that's how it all started. You got the bug from there.
Literally how it all started. I literally looked up the best, the most well-known music video editor in town and started working for free, essentially, and shadowing him. That was it.
Well done.
Similar. Me and the kids in my neighborhood would make these ridiculous horror and sci-fi movies on a VHS camera. We would do the VHS to VHS editing, if anyone's old enough to remember that. Yeah, so that was and very quickly you realize, like, why isn't this just as easy as I think it is to make movies look like movies? It's funny how quickly that you realize.
You're just supposed to point and shoot, right? That's it. Yeah. Anyone? Marco, how about you?
It's funny because actually I think it was I shot like a really short film. And I shot it with the Lego toys and it was a novel written by Alessandro Manzoni, is a popular novel here in Italy. And I shot it with a Lego, and it was everything was shot in stop motion. So I shot a lot of picture, I shot of photos, and then I put it together. But I really wanted to do something, to try to play with the narrative, to play with the images. So it was funny. I think it's still on YouTube. I should remove that thing because
No, keep it there. We're all
no,
gonna
I
watch
think
it
it's
after
really
this.
embarrassing for me. Totally embarrassing.
You made the first Lego movie, right? Yeah, there you go.
Not exactly. But I use also some other kind of brand, so it wasn't just a Lego. I used also a castle by Fisher Price or something like that. It was really embarrassing for me.
Yeah, we have to use what's around, so yeah. Juliette, how about you?
Well, I think it was much more classical, because as I'm probably the oldest in this group, it was at that time it was 35 millimeters, or it was on film, so it wasn't you wouldn't do that so easily. So I guess no, just cut friends shorts. That was how it started. I can't remember which one it was, and it probably anyway isn't on YouTube and has never been on YouTube. But yeah, that was how I started, I guess. Yeah, that was fun.
Myron, how about you?
That's funny. I'll give you two quick examples. One was when I was first starting in college, before I even knew I wanted to be in film. I did actually these photo series with myself in it, and I would just take like hundreds of photos and I'd like put them next to each other. So in a weird way, like that was the beginning of my editing process, because I was like, this image goes in front of this, what have you. But then I did make a short movie a short film with on 16, and I cut it myself. And it was the first time I'd used music to something. I used Higher Ground, Stevie Wonder, and there was a bunch of people walking around with suitcases through a town, and it was really bad. But but I love using music next to it, and it gave me it definitely gave me the bug of using music and trying to manipulate images and yeah, just and also friends would come to me and say, "Do you want to cut this?" Because no one else wanted to do it. So so right away I fell into it, fell in love with it.
Laziness can breed a career. There you go. So all of these need to be on YouTube so we can watch them. Well, I feel like one of the biggest misconceptions about editing is that a long movie in runtime means bad editing, but editing is about pacing. So how would you explain to a lay person, a regular person, the difference between the two and why a long movie doesn't necessarily mean it's poorly edited?
Well, what do you mean? Because a long movie can be a movie where the story is like a lifetime story, and this justifies that the movie will be long. It doesn't mean that the pace will be slow. So I don't. What do you mean by that?
No, I think some viewers might think if you see a movie is like 3.5 hours, it's like, oh, that's way too long. So that means it's bad editing, which I don't agree with. But how do you explain? Yeah.
I don't have this feeling because I mean I think nowadays movies, the one that are at least the one that are released in theaters now, are much longer than they used to be, because they used to be like an hour and a half, and I have the feeling that now maybe people don't want to go to a theater just for an hour and a half. They want to they are paying for something, they want to really. And most of the movies that are released in theaters now are really, really long, like often more than 3 hours. And I don't have the feeling that it's for people, it means bad editing or whatever. It means, wow, we're gonna have a lot to eat, to watch, to whatever. It's gonna be so rich to see all the a long thing. Well, that's what I think, but I don't know.
John and I were always struggling with length on Wicked because it's a 2 hour and 40 minute movie. But we found the more we tried to cut down, the more we tried to condense, the less power and emotion it had. And if we're going to make a music like The Sound of Music, make a film like The Sound of Music or The Wizard of Oz, or give them a good old fashioned Hollywood saga, like we needed to give them this journey. Um, and I would say that if we're telling the story correctly, if we're keeping hold of the audience dramatically, then it doesn't matter what the length is. I've seen 90-minute movies that feel like 4 hours long. And so I think it's just that we have to make sure every beat is earned, that the audience is feeling emotion, and that and ultimately, give them what they're paying for. They're paying like $20 to go see a movie. I mean, go sit in the theater and enjoy this ride. We have on Wicked, we have thousands and thousands of people that worked on this thing to deliver this piece of magic. And I think that at the end of the day, we haven't, maybe Hollywood has broken its promise of what we should deliver. But if we can give that back to them, maybe they'll sit in there for whatever amount of time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've seen like 3 hour movies that fly by, so it's like it's not about the runtime at all. Nicholas, how about you?
I mean, I think there are various contracts you make with the viewer, and I think there is an awareness you need to have of that if you are going to sort of knowingly flaunt that or not. I mean, I do think every film, I mean, and I think editing is where this really gets the most focused, is you realize the sort of emotional and conceptual scope of the material when you're really testing the edits, and like how much does this need, how much does it earn. And part of it is subjective for sure, but part of it is this bigger picture of like, what is this movie in the culture, where is it going to be seen, who's going to see it, and what is that understanding? Because I think there is a time and place to break that and push it, and maybe you're trying to make something. I mean, I think the best way to encounter Nickel Boys, for instance, is really like it's a work of art by Rommel, and that's a slightly different contract than I'm going to see this story I already know, or this character I already know, or this type of movie I already know what it is, and I know what I want from it. And I think those are subtly different, and yet there is overlap, I think, in all of this. I also think there's just a reality to human anatomy and how long you want to stay seated. I just want to bring intermissions back. I think they're great. I love seeing movies in India where they're 4.5 hours long, and bring a meal and you dance and you go
Yeah.
buy ice
Go
cream.
to the bathroom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You don't miss anything. So,
Yeah.
Marco, how about you?
Of course, I disagree with this idea that long running time means a bad editing. I would suggest to watch Satan Tango by Bellatar. It's a 7 hour long. It's an incredible movie. It's a masterpiece. Or 1900 Novecento by Bernardo Bertolucci. It's 5 hours long. I mean, we'll just it's their masterpiece, and it depends on the movie and the his needs, because I have this romantic idea that the editor is like a midwife and has to bring it out the latent truth that you can feel in the footage. It's like a Socratic meiotic process, you know what I mean? And so there is a truth in the footage. You have to just to bring it out. So you have to feel, you have to hear, you have to listen to the needs of the film.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that analogy. Your editors are midwives.
Yeah.
I would just add to that I think we're co-parents. We're not just midwives. We're co-parents that our hearts and our DNA is flowing into this. Everything. We have voices. We're not technicians. This is our means to communicate art to the rest of the world. And so I use that sort of the picture sort of idea, or the other thing I used to do in art school was make collages. And I think art being an editor is no different. Like, we're getting all these little bits and pieces and throwing them on the canvas. And so we're not just the person who's helping deliver. We are the co-parent. We are the captains of the ships. Anyways.
Yeah.
Peter, how about you?
I'm not sure there's much left to say. I mean, I'd probably say go watch Casino, you know what I mean? And just
Yeah.
be entertained for a very long time. Yeah, I mean, some stories are long, some stories are short, and doesn't really have any reflection on the quality of the editing, or there are some really long movies that could be shorter, and there are some really short movies that could probably be longer, so yeah. And
Yeah.
I agree with all the things these guys just said.
Mhm. Well, finally, what was the best note you've ever gotten from a director about an edit? So much laughter. They must be hilarious.
Never thought of them in terms of that way, I don't think.
Or just like a direction, whatever you want to call it.
My God.
I think I've heard a director say to me, "Do that again." Like, do more of that.
They're very specific.
Yeah.
Same thing again.
I think when I was younger, more inexperienced, my goal was to have the first thing I show them have no notes. Just be like, "Oh, you did it.
Yeah.
Thank you." But that
Yeah.
isn't actually what editing is at all. You do I think the value of it is in the dialogue. So I don't know, harsh notes can be great. Like, that's totally wrong, can be incredibly useful, and you can learn so much from them. So yeah, I'm still thinking about the best note though.
I feel like it's kind of I don't know. I can't remember a single note. I feel like every note's like a conversation, so it's not kind of like specific in a sense. Every now and then you might get a director that says, "I want 3 more frames on that," but it's not usually like that. It's kind of
That's not that interesting.
it's not that interesting. It's more. I think it's a dialogue, and I think also more you work with someone, the less notes feel like notes, and just, it's just the work, and you just kind of get into conversations about the material and the story, and it turns into much more than just a note, I guess. So it's very hard to pinpoint one that stands out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't really know if there are bad notes, good notes, interesting. They are all notes are really interesting, and even as you said, Nicola, even if they are very bad notes, or it's you have to learn from this, and it's really great because it makes you think, and you're like, oh yeah. After first you're kind of pissed off, but then you realize that it's very interesting to think about it, and then to try to find ideas, and all notes are amazing to me, and there's no, I don't know, there's not a note that stands out or whatever. They are always interesting, and not only notes by the directors, notes by every viewer, I think, should make notes. And we should keep them in mind.
Yeah. I mean, because there's more than one person working on it, so for sure. Marco, how about you?
I have this funny story because when the first scene I edited with Luca, I was 26. I was on the project We Are Who We Are, the TV show, HBO TV show. I was there because he was looking for an assembly editor, and he wanted to test me and to figure out if we have the same vision, you know. And so he asked me to edit a scene. And when I edited and I showed a scene to Luca, he say, "Oh, this is good, it's great. Oh no, you did a mistake. Found a mistake," and and he left the room. So it was great. I was so nervous. Where is the mistake? What I did? And then because he wanted to test me, so I found out that he didn't want to cut to on the close up of one character, but it was great because he asked me to think more on the scene, and he stimulated my creative process.
I love that he left the room after he said that.
Yeah, because he gave me some time to
That you
focus
figured
more
it
on the scene.
That's
Awesome.
definitely, yeah. There's nothing better than keep going. You have more time.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have the time to figure it out. Yeah. So I don't need to tell you.
Sometimes sometimes the directors, and John would do this too, is like, this scene is perfect. Do you want to try a different take on it? And I think it's like this idea that you can break something and start all over again and find something in that process. And I think that's really helpful to challenge yourself when you think that you've perfected something, and then you're like, okay, well, what if I was to cut this from a different point of view? Or what if I were to open it on a different shot, or really sort of hold the tension in a different way? And I think that's really helpful when you have somebody challenge you. And to Juliette's point, that, when an audience, listening to the audience, they are telling you, they don't always tell you the answers, but they're giving you little hints of things to help find your way. And sort of listening to that it can be great.
For sure. Well, we have to wrap, unfortunately, but it was great speaking with all of you. Thanks so much for your time, and congratulations again on all of your films.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Have a good one.